Okay. Warmly welcome to the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. Try to say those words, they activate some previously unknown muscles in your face, because Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. It's a beautiful day, warm like summer. No, well, we wish. Here we can make artificial light in any color we want. My name is Björn Nilsson, and I have the pleasure of being the president of this fantastic academy. Today we are releasing a report, Perspective on Innovation Environments and Risk Capital, which is a fantastic report. And I should say already now that this will, within a month, be translated into English in full, and as I understand, it will be mailed to everybody, both the Swedish version and then when the English is available. IVA is a fantastic academy. We were the first, some people say the oldest, but that sounds old-fashioned. We were the first engineering science academy in the world, founded 1919. Today there are 22 only in Europe, and in Europe there are 3 that are by far the largest: the Swedish IVA, the German Acatech, and the British Royal Academy of Engineering. And we work very closely with both, actually mainly with the German Academy. We work on many different things, not only forest industry. We work on research policies. We work on business model for resource efficiency, young people's interest for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, smart cities. We have roughly 15 large projects, and we work a lot internationally. Next week we will conduct the Royal Technology Mission to the United States with 30 members, CEOs of major companies, and vice chancellors of major university, and it's together with His Majesty the King, who participates in every single meeting, sitting in the front row and asking the first questions. We started this project for many reasons. One is it fits very nicely. We have a very active group within the Academy, section number 8, which is dealing with forestry, and we in the Academy we recognize the importance of the forestry industry. For people here, it's not a surprise because you are in this sector, most of you, but more than 30% of our net export comes from the forestry industry. It's by far the largest net export sector. In gross export, it's the machinery, but what may actually put food on the table in Sweden, it's the forestry today. It will be also in 10 years, if we do things right today in this seminar. The industry is, we know, has a lot of opportunities because it's sustainable and forestry products are very good and here. But how can we transform? How can we make use of the knowledge? What's the responsibility? And that's what we hope to get some answers for. Before I hand over to the moderator of today, I would just excuse myself because I have to rush almost immediately from my welcome address to the government's headquarters to meet with the Minister of Research, Helene Hellmark Knutsson, on a specific topic. They're always urgent topic, aren't there? But I'm sure I like this report. I'm sure you will sort everything out. So with the extremely experienced moderator today, I'm sure everything will be crystal clear when this seminar is over. With those very, I would say, those words of high expectation, I hand over to Pernilla Ström.
Thank you so much, Björn. I hope it's going to be all crystal clear because I'm rather confused right now, but we'll see around 12 o'clock what we have learned so far. So I also say a very welcome to this seminar where we're going to discuss innovation in the Swedish forest industry, where we're going to have a perspective of innovation environments. We do have a lot of distinguished guests, as you can see on the list. However, we did have a regret, so Johan Hillner will not be here. He should have been after the pause, but on the other hand, we will have more time for questions and remarks from you in the audience. We will hear a couple of introductions first, and we will have a break around 10:15. 20 to 10 or 10:15, we'll have a short coffee break, and then we will have a discussion, a joint discussion, where I will invite you in the audience as well. And then we will conclude with a discussion on leadership. We will close this seminar at 12 o'clock at latest. We're going to discuss an industry that's quite mature. Some has described it as being fat and happy, and still we know it's extremely important both for Sweden and for the development for the future. So what we're going to discuss here today is how can we keep on to promote innovation and develop new business models in the same time as we are maintaining the profitability in the current business models. And we hope that we will get some inspiration and we'll get some new ideas, and that you will go home from here today with a lot of other thoughts and a lot of ideas for your own businesses. So with that, I say all very welcome again. I would also say that since this seminar is streamed, if you would like to make a comment or you're going to ask a question, please use the microphones. There will be microphones side to the seats. So use them, otherwise people can't hear you. There is also a hashtag if you would like to make some comments or remarks, and it's the hashtag innovation I skogen, innovation I skogen, so you can train the Swedish there as well for you who are not speaking Swedish other times. By that, I will say hello to our first speaker. His name is Helmut Schönenberger. He is CEO of Unternehmertum Venture Capital Partners and Unternehmertum Center for Innovation and Business Creation. And I give the floor to you, Mr. Helmut Schönenberger. Please give him a big hand.
Super. Thank you, Pernilla. So, hi, I'm Helmut. It's a great pleasure to be here in Stockholm again. And I think EVA is really a great organization, because I think it's all about innovation and collaboration. And so we are also working a little bit together with EVA, and it's really fantastic that you have this organization here in Sweden. And I'm not sure why I'm invited, because we also go to Stockholm to learn a lot from you, because it's really amazing what Sweden is doing, how Sweden is coping with innovation, with engineering, and I'm happy to be here and share what we are doing in Munich. So first of all, what's my role, to give you an impression? So I'm leading a very large entrepreneurship center, and our focus is in high tech. So what we basically do is we produce startups, and not only 2 per year, but on average every week a new high tech startup. And it's a joint effort. So my boss is like Markus Wallenberg of Germany. So her name is Susanne Klatten. So she's the most wealthiest person in Germany. She owns companies like BMW or SGL, and Susanne says, okay, it's extremely important to also foster the next generation of entrepreneurs, not only the established companies, but the next generation. And we also work closely together with all the academic institutions, so we are part of what is here KTH. In Munich it's called TUM, Technical University of Munich, and so we are also an academic part of the university, and we are also good friends of the German government, because we are the largest source of high-tech startups for Germany, so also the German government loves us. And how we build this machine is that we really start from scratch, so with the young people. So we invest millions of euros per year in educating young people in entrepreneurship and also in technology. But not only young people, but also very experienced ones. So, for example, we also do the IPO trainings for all German IPO candidates. So in our classroom, you have 18-year-olds and also more matured people who are going public with their company. And then we have tons of projects. Most of these projects are sandbox projects, so people play with new technology, and there are hundreds of these projects out there per year. And the interesting thing is that out of this ecosystem, a lot of very interesting companies evolve, and statistically it's about over 50 companies per year. And then we also help our German established companies also to innovate. So they are also customers of our center, and we spin off technologies from companies like Airbus or BMW and Siemens and build new companies which are no longer part of these large companies but are spin-offs. And then we also have a known venture capital fund where we also invest in our own companies, and this is one of the most successful from a profit side funds in Europe. So it really pays off too. So this is what we are doing day by day. And so I got a briefing that we should talk a little bit about the process industry, because you're from the forest industry, and so the process industry is your turf. So in our ecosystem, we are not so much in the forest industry, but we are more in the automation industry, in the automobile industry, and so we have a huge flow also of startups out of these industries, and also startups which help our established companies to innovate and to become faster and more productive. And here are a few companies. So probably you haven't heard of these companies, but the interesting thing is these companies are worth maybe between 20 and 100 million euros. Yeah, so they're quite successful. And so one is Konux. This is one of the most hyped German companies or startups right now. So the main customer is, for example, the Deutsche Bahn, the German railroad system, and Konux is fitting sensors on the rail tracks, and with these sensors they can totally optimize the maintenance of the whole railway system, because they know with predictive maintenance when to maintain the rails much better. Yeah. Another one is ProGlass. So this is a wearable with a lot of sensors, and you can use these sensors like RFID readers in your production lines or in your logistics centers. Or there are also many software companies. For example, Celonis, they do data mining in large companies. So they basically plug their system to large SAP systems, and then they have algorithms. And with these algorithms, they can, only by the flow of data, they can remodel the processes of the company. So they just plug in to the data centers, and then they know exactly what the company is doing by analyzing the data flows. And by doing this, they can also optimize the processes within the companies. And this company is also now 3 or 4 years old and about 100 million worth. So this is where we are. So the topic of today is ecosystems, innovation environments. And if you look at Munich, I think it's pretty similar to what you have here in Sweden and especially in Stockholm. So you have a great engineering base, great engineers. You have all the talent, so with fantastic academic institutions. You have this industry backbone. In your case, the forest industry. In our case, it's a lot about industry 4.0, about automotive industry, mobility industry, medtech industry. Then there's a lot of service infrastructure there too. Also here in Stockholm, for example, you have incubators, accelerators, patent attorneys, so everything is there. You have a lot of VC companies and private equity companies, same in Munich. And I think you have a very open government where the Prime Minister and all the ministers really try to foster innovation. And I think this makes a strong ecosystem. And what I think it's important that all these different stakeholders also communicate and build up a great story together. In case of Munich, these are our big clusters. So it's the software industry. I think Sweden and especially Stockholm is also a software engineering cluster. So in Munich, we have about 150,000 software engineers within the city, so it's really huge. Then all these IoT things are extremely important. We also have in Munich the case that many international companies now move to Munich. So we have companies like Google, like Apple, like Microsoft, and for example, just a few months ago, IBM announced that the global headquarter for IBM Watson IoT is moving to Munich with about 2,000 people. And this again makes the whole cluster stronger and stronger. Then, where we are famous for is automotive, so with BMW, with Audi, so this is a cluster, and then also medtech and insurtech. So, and there are a lot of companies, and I think it's like here in this room, the whole community is there within the cluster, and you really communicate within this cluster. What's nice is that it's not only the established companies in Munich, but you also have hundreds of young companies, and so they are deeply involved in innovating together. And one example in the field of Industry 4.0 is one subsegment in Munich is 3D printing or additive manufacturing. We have the luck that now we have one world market leader for laser sintering in Munich. It's called EOS. It's a company which is now 25 years old and has its origin from our university. And what they basically build is 3D printing parts out of metal. And this is a game changer right now. So if you look, for example, here on the left side, this part is a nozzle for a jet engine. It costs about 20,000 euros, and this alone is a multi-billion application per year. Only one part which you can print with with these machines, and with this nozzle you save about 2% of fuel for aircrafts. So 2%, this is huge. Yeah. And so what's happening right now is that a whole cluster is forming around this new technology, and it's these are the technology guys and girls, the application people, and also the people who are in sales and who are the distribution experts. And then we are gathering and connecting all these companies. And the interesting part is it's the established companies, for example, like BMW. BMW was the first customer of EOS and in the automotive industry. But now the largest customer of EOS is a startup. It's also now a unicorn. It's called Shapeways, and they run huge networks of 3D printers worldwide. Yeah. So what's happening is that a whole new industry is evolving within 20 years. And what we are doing as our center is really to connect all the startups and all the established players and build up a huge portfolio of projects, and out of these projects many new innovations involve, and about 10 new startups per year evolve. And in my briefing I got also the buzzword value chain, and that's also what we are doing. So we also analyze the value chain of the 3D printing industry. So it starts with data generation, data preparation, and the manufacturing process, the post-processing processes, and all the applications and the distribution of the applications. And there are so many innovations in all these stages. For example, in data generation, with the new 3D printed parts, it's a total different game. For example, if you look at the right side, the upper picture, this is a heat exchanger. This is an optimized heat exchanger. And what you need totally different CAD tools to design such optimized devices. So it's not the original versions of CATIA, for example. So I'm an aerospace engineer, and so we were used to have plates and rivets and put plates together. And in this, it's bionic structures, optimized bionic structures, and you need different calculation projects to design these parts. And so in our value chain, we have, for example, startups which build software to calculate optimized structures, which then become components, and these components can be printed. But they look totally different than what we were used to. And the most disruptive and fastest innovation projects are normally the startups. So what is happening that then we set up startups, and these startups collaborate with our established companies, and then BMW and Siemens and so on either start a strategic partnership or directly invest in these companies or buy these companies later. And how we organize ourselves to really build this cluster is that we invest a lot in education. So we give lectures and so on to students, and we connect all the multipliers, and we have this huge network of startups and foster these startups with all kinds of projects like incubators. Yeah. And I think this could be also done in your industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helmut. Please stay on. Stay on. I just got a couple of, you can stay here. I'll stay here. I just got a couple of questions. When you're promoting and we're creating this kind of clusters, what were the main difficulties in the start, in the beginning?
So it took us 15 years to grow this cluster, and it's a journey, okay, and it's bringing people together, and so I think everybody has its own agenda. The universities have their agenda, the established companies have their agenda, the young people have also their agenda, don't know what to do, and to bring people together and really work face to face, this was the toughest part of it.
Yeah, because that requires a lot of trust, really.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, because what you're doing, you're bringing startups, new companies, startups together with mature industries. You were mentioning BMW, but it also means that the old industries in some way also need to cooperate with others. That will mean they might give up future values because on the market they're fierce competitors, and now they're going to cooperate. How do you do that?
As you said, it's a lot about trust, and I think a very strong signal in our ecosystem were that the leaders of these companies and the owners of these companies, like Susanne Klatten, said, okay, this is serious, we should do this, and we personally help and attend, for example, all these pitch days and so on. Okay, and by showing this leadership, then all the other 120,000 employees of BMW said, okay, if the CEO of BMW likes it and the owner of BMW likes it, we should do it. And then the president of the university got involved and said, okay, this is extremely important. We are an entrepreneurial university. We should do it. And then you build up success stories, and then you come in this flow.
So you're stressing the importance of having a leadership actually promoting and taking a positive stand for this kind of developments. I was also wondering, you were mentioning here that promoting innovation really means that you bring in very young, smart, talented entrepreneurs together with older people who got the experience. How do you do that, and what kind of coalition is there?
So every day you can attend another conference like this one, and it's mixed. So there are not only the established company representatives in there, but also young students, and it's really amazing to see these guys like. Here, the one in the middle at Konux. So this is Andreas Kunze. So this he's a student now. He's maybe age 24 or 25. Okay, and when he came to us, he was 18. And normally everybody's laughing about these young students. Okay, they are playing. Okay, and then he started his company and he went to Silicon Valley. He got Andy von Bechtolsheim as an investor, and now 4 years later, he has a company which is maybe worth 50 million euros. Okay, and
so nobody's laughing anymore.
Exactly, yeah. And but I think what we should do is really appreciate and foster the next generation, and then I think great things come out. This doesn't mean that every young person is becoming the best entrepreneur, but I think we should give them the chance.
You're seeing a lot of startups every year. You're mentioning that they had, I didn't remember how many there were.
50.
And then you also see what actually flies, what does not fly. So what are the main, what are the main factors for success? Are there any general?
I think that it's the team. How passionate is the team? How much energy has the team? Okay, and how capable is the team? But so all these companies started with a slightly different idea. Okay, it was not that the first day they had the great idea and then the game was won. But it's a journey, and people have to go on this journey.
Mm. Would you say there are any differences between innovations in the process industry compared to other kind of industries?
I don't think so. So before Konux, everybody said, okay, there's nothing more boring than the railway industry. Okay, so everybody said, oh, railways and the Deutsche Bahn, these guys are so boring. Okay, and now this is the most hyped startup in Germany. Okay, and it's really what you make up and how you build a great story, and then things become cool and people want to invest, and then customers are coming. But you really have to go on this journey.
I guess it's like in Sweden. Who would have believed 20 years or 30 years ago that Televerket was going to be high-tech? Okay, thank you so very much, Helmut Schöneberger. We'll be back to you later. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going from Munich to Cambridge, because now I'm going to introduce Mrs. Shirley Jamieson, who is Head of Marketing at the University of Cambridge Enterprise. So please, Shirley, the floor is yours.
It's a real pleasure to follow you, Helmut, because we always think of Munich as being a very successful cluster. So I'm going to talk about a different kind of cluster, which is based in Cambridge. I work at the University of Cambridge's entrepreneurship area, which is the Enterprise Centre. We are called Cambridge Enterprise Limited. We are a limited company, 100% owned by the University of Cambridge, and we're there to help our academics and other people within the university who are researching to find a way through to find the best route for commercializing their idea. So in contrast, I want to just give you an idea of where we sit in the area of geography. So the whole of that region that you can see in green only has a population of 5.8 million people. Now, we don't have many forests in the east of England. You may know that. But what we do have is that we have more sheep than human beings. So how is it that such a sort of a region that's so agricultural become known in the world for its innovation? So the city, which is in the red spot, which is Cambridge, if you take a 25-mile radius around the center of the city, there's only a population of around 1 million people. So again, it's not very many. And then the city itself is very small. We only have 124,000 people who live in the city of Cambridge. So you compare that to Munich, and already you can realize that there's a different kind of scale here. However, what we've been able to do is to grow a cluster which is world famous. back in the 1980s, there was a report written by Siegel, Quince, and Wicksteed called the Cambridge Phenomenon. And that's where you get the term that we're sometimes labeled with, which is the Cambridge Phenomenon. We're the only city in the world that has that label. And that's why people are quite interested to know how it is such a tiny city has managed to become so world-known in innovation. This is a picture of the city. And probably what you can see there is an awful lot of green. So again, we have a city that's very unusual. We have more green spaces than almost any city in Europe. And those green spaces, you might think, oh, great, plenty of space in which to grow your companies that you're going to be forming, plenty of space to grow. Those spaces will always remain green. They're owned either by the city or by our colleges that make up the house the students for the university. So we have had to come up with a very different kind of solution to grow the cluster in Cambridge. I want just to mention, because it's important for you to understand where it is that the University of Cambridge has come from. And really, it comes from our mission. And our mission is quite different to the rest of the missions of universities around the world. And the reason it's different is the fact that we start off saying that we're here to contribute to society. That is what we say first and foremost. We want to get those ideas out there for use by people around the world. That's what we're there to do. And that we do that through education, training, and research. The other universities in the world, they will mention contributing to society, but they'll put it after talking about education and learning and research. So we take quite a different view to other people or other institutions around the world. So people then say, how is it? What is it? What's your secret? What is it that you've done to be able to create this unusual environment? And we always say it's very, very simple. What we do is we recruit the very best academics in the world, and then we give them the freedom to do what they would like to. And that is incredibly important when it comes to innovation. You want curiosity. You want people to be able to sort of think, yes, I can pursue this sort of idea, and nobody's going to stop me. That helps tremendously with coming up with new ideas and fostering innovation. The intellectual property belongs to the university unless it's requested by the academics. At Cambridge, we allow everyone the choice. They can do it themselves, or they can come through Cambridge Enterprise, and we'll help them commercialize. But we allow the choice. The main thing is we want them to get that ideas out there for use by society. So there's two pictures up there. The first one is one you're going to probably recognize quite easily, which is a plantation. Now, there's two systems that universities use around the world, and this is really sort of black and white. There's obviously in between, but I'm going to do black and white here, so as analogies. So the image on the right is a plantation. So in that, you plant your trees. You know exactly where you're planting them. And therefore, you're also going to know exactly what you're going to get out as a result, what your product is. Because you're not going to really allow other things to grow in between the trees. You don't want that to happen. So you're going to put in rules and regulations about how to manage your plantation. Because you want those good straight trees up there. Cambridge doesn't do that. We actually run, on the left, what is called the rainforest system. Now, the rainforest system is very different. There is no real central control. It is a bit chaotic, but it's also highly creative. In rainforests, you get far more diversity happening. You get new species emerging. In other words, new ideas and innovations. And it is a little bit chaotic, but it is, as I say, very, very innovative. And that's what we run in Cambridge. So to give you an idea, we pin the creation of the Cambridge cluster to over 50 years ago with the establishment of the Trinity Science Park, which is one of the colleges in Cambridge. Then fast forward a number of years, and you have the creation of the Cambridge Network. That was in the late 1990s. So what we're doing there was bringing together a bunch of very influential people within Cambridge who said that it's fairly important that we do networking. It is a contact sport. You need to do networking. You need to mix up people. There has been a very long history of innovation at the university. I could speak for an hour or two on that alone, but I'm not going to, obviously. But they wanted to mention that in Cambridge, the colleges, which are not part of the university, they're separate to the University of Cambridge, play a very important role in innovation, because there too you have a great mixture of people. What you have meeting every day around the table to eat are people from different disciplines, and that's really important. If you're going to be creative, you don't want to stay with like-minded people. You want to have a mix-up of bringing in people that are somebody who's doing Latin with somebody who's doing physics, because you never know what might come out of that conversation. If it's only physics people meeting, you can imagine where the conversation will be. We also established an entrepreneurial community within the university as well. I've put up 3 things that we established right at the beginning, which were been held true and still work to this day. We established a business plan competition, which was for students, run by students, and it's one of the most successful in the world today, around the world. We have late afternoon lectures by experienced entrepreneurs, which is very important to hear from role models. And we also established a week-long boot camp for those who have a German idea, and that still runs again every year. And there's been quite a number of very successful companies that have been established out of that. So those were 3 sort of solid planks that we put in at the very beginning, and other universities around the world have used the same model that we established. If I fast forward to today, what has this sort of rural community set out in what we call the sort of, the fens? It's sort of, very flat land, mainly agricultural. If we talk about the Cambridge cluster today, what is it that we can say to people that are influential from our point of view in government? How do we get their attention? And there's 3 headlines that we usually call upon to give across the information. And we say, the reason you should be interested in Cambridge, in that small little city out in the Fenlands, is that we currently have 4,300 knowledge-intensive firms employing 58,000 people with over 11 billion turnover. What we're not in Cambridge is a manufacturing cluster. We are a knowledge-intensive cluster. So this is why a lot of people around the world are very interested to come to Cambridge, because they too would like to replicate this. When it came to looking at our innovation system, MIT did a report several years ago, and it turned out we're regarded as the 3rd most successful university innovation ecosystem in the world, after MIT and Stanford. So it's really nice to have that acknowledgement as well. And if you look at our patents, we do 65.6 patents for every 100,000 residents. That's the highest in the UK, and if you combine it with, the next 6 cities together, we're still outperforming them. And we're just a small little city, so you can imagine the number of PhDs there are in around Cambridge as well. This is just to give you an idea of one of our clusters in Cambridge. So what we had to do was to go and create science parks outside of the city centre. That's where the space was. This is the life science cluster. It is one of the very largest in the world. I think it's, somebody mentioned to me it's now number 3 in the world. For example, AstraZeneca has been building a building there to relocate all of its scientists there from around the world, and that building's about to be completed. This cluster, once you get a cluster going, it's sustainable. And this is what this represents. There's a huge number of companies, as you can see, based around Cambridge in life sciences alone. They asked if I give a couple of examples as well. So the first example I'm going to give you comes from a company called Breathing Buildings. This is based on research that comes out of BP Institute in Cambridge. So again, it's a large traditional company that has invested in research inside the University of Cambridge. And they were doing some research looking at different ways in which you could reduce heating costs. And Sean Fitzgerald, who's one of the engineers working on the project, looking at different things that you could do, realized that by ventilating buildings in a different way, you could reduce your heating bills by as much as 50%. It was really drastically changing what you might think BP would be wanting research to happen on. But instead, they just turned and flipped the coin and came up with something quite different. And Breathing Buildings has been very successful in putting in these ventilation in in new buildings around the UK. So I'm thinking really that, you just have to think in a different way sometimes in which to get something new and different coming out. The second one I want to give as an example is a company called Pneumacare. I put up the question there, how do you test the lungs of somebody who's unconscious, unable to respond to commands, is unable to get to hospital? This comes from a parent who was in hospital and whose child was unconscious from recovering from a major illness. And he said to the doctor, what's wrong? He says, well, we're not quite sure it's the lungs. Well, can you test it? And he went, no, we can't. We can't test the lungs unless the patient is conscious. And the parent said, well, this isn't very good. There must be a way around it. So together with the respirologist, they actually came up with a solution. So again, this is sort of saying, okay, here's a problem. How do we find a solution for it? And it's only sometimes by being close to a problem that you go like, well, why hasn't anybody thought of this before? Why hasn't anybody come up with a solution? And they went to the University of Cambridge, where there was some work being done in the gaming industry. Very different again. Why would you think of testing lungs with something to do with gaming? It wouldn't seem normal, that you would go somewhere like that. But they had something that they could use, which could actually, there's a grid that you can put onto the body. That's what that grid is like. And there's an algorithm to watch the body's lungs expand and contract. So together with that and with a local company that was an engineering company, they were able to come up with a product that's now being used around the world. And, it's sometimes finding that problem and then saying, okay, how do we find the solution to it? So there's several ways around of either you sort of say creation from something completely different from research, or sometimes here's the problem, how do we find the solution? So sometimes people say, well, what is it that you need to be innovative? What kind of things do you require to make sure that you're going to have some innovation system? And I put up some of the things that come up quite regularly, that you need to have access to deep research institutes. You can't sometimes do it on your own. Links to service providers, which Helmut has already talked about, and the importance of them. You need to have access to people who can fund it. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to get it off the ground. Good communication links, experience management. We always sort of say that, if you have a great idea, but if you don't have the leadership and somebody who's passionate and able to do it, it's probably never going to get off the ground. Close to international airports, so you can, we are an island. We need to be exporting and finding, people who can take on our ideas internationally. Good housing, quality schools, quality of life, a highly qualified workforce, and a bottom-up approach to make sure it happens. I think Helmut has already explained that how important it is to have the support of people within your community to make things happen. That's the end of what I was going to talk about. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Shirley. You were telling us that the Cambridge Enterprise actually is a limited company, 100% owned by the Cambridge University, and that you also say that intellectual property belongs entirely to the company. How does that work? To the university.
It's to the university.
Yeah. Have there been some conflicts regarding that, or have there been some problems for getting people to understand the kind of business model that you use? And are there any shortcomings?
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, that people at the university have a choice. If they come up with an idea, they can either commercialize it themselves, or else they can come through us. But what they are required to do is to come and declare it to us first, so that we can, if they want to do it on their own, we assign back the intellectual property to them. There was discussions when the new intellectual property was established. There was discussions within the community of scholars. And I have to explain that at Cambridge, it's not the university that established the intellectual property policy. It wasn't Cambridge Enterprise that did it. It was our community of scholars. They're the ones that actually talked about it, debated it, voted on it, and decided that what the intellectual property should be for the policy for the university should be. There can be conflicts, and that's what we're there to do, to manage. That's our job, is to manage conflicts if there are any.
Okay, so what have been the main problems this far? Have there been the main problems? Have you lost ideas that should have been developed?
We may not know about the lost ideas that should have been developed. I think we're far better at doing it now than we ever have been. We are an extremely busy office that sees a huge number every year. However, when you have a university that's so research rich as Cambridge, there might be ones that we just don't know about. There have been ones that they decided they go out and set up a company, and then they want to get finance, and then the question is who owns the intellectual property, and then they come to us and say, we probably should have spoken to you first. Can you please assign us back the intellectual property so we can get the funding? So we're there to help with conflict if there is any. And yes, there might be ones that we don't know about, but that's the nature.
Yeah. I was wondering about the funding. Do you have so large resources by yourself that you don't need to raise any capital, or do you need to go out to the market and raise capital?
Okay, good question. We're extremely fortunate that our seed funds, I haven't described what Cambridge Enterprise and what we have. We have a tech transfer office within Cambridge Enterprise, which deals with the licenses, the patents, the licenses. We also have a seed funds, and this is the question that you're asking about. So our seed funds is 22 years old, which in itself is extraordinary. Most seed funds don't exist beyond 7-8 years because they run out of funding. What we've been extremely fortunate and bound to do is to create companies that we've been able to realize their equity and plow the money back into our seed funds. So now, 22 years on, we have more money in our seed funds than we had to even we began with. So in our seed funds, we have over £15 million at the moment to invest in, so we don't need to go out and raise more money to do the investments. However, we do have a government scheme called the EIS, the SEIS, and people who have some funding that they would like to be able to put in somewhere to save on tax, are able to invest into SEIS, EIS, and we were the first university in the UK to set up a scheme, so we raise some money through that every year. But it's limited because you have to invest that money in that year, so you can't sort of take huge amounts of money. We also have a follow-on fund, Cambridge Innovation Capital, which is a venture capital company, and they currently have about 75 million in their pot, and it's a patient capital. Patient capital means that's an open fund. They don't have to pay back to their investors pass into their investors at the end of the fund. It just carries on. So they'll raise more funds as required. So, yeah, but we do go out and we get venture funding for our companies. We're one of the most successful in the UK in getting follow-on funding.
Yeah, so you got a privileged position.
Yeah.
I was wondering also, you were talking about the Cambridge phenomenon, and you were talking about the success behind it, and the success you said was that you are able to recruit. You're recruiting the best academics, and then you let them to do whatever they want to. Still, there need to be some sort of selection process, don't it? Isn't there?
For the academics, the academics are selected by the University of Cambridge, so that's out of our hands. It's just that we tend to have world class.
So they say these academics are great, you should finance them, and you do that. But you're not selecting them.
We don't select our academics, no. We're not responsible for that. That's University of Cambridge's domain. We have quite a number of academics who are world class that also are very entrepreneurial. But the thing is that they tend not to want to leave their academic position. It tends to be their postdocs or researchers that will go out and set up the company, and our academics are allowed to be on the board and be part of that company, but they very rarely. I can only think of one example, and that person returned back to the university. They don't want to give up their academic position. And they carry on being entrepreneurial and producing more companies, which is fantastic for us. So yeah, we like it that way.
Well, it's quite impressive, as you said yourself. You are number 3rd as regarding the most successful university in innovations and innovative ecosystems as well. Yeah. And the city is less than 125,000 inhabitants. You got 30,000 students. It's like the city of Lund. That's really not a very big city at all. How important is the attractiveness of the city itself? You were mentioning the quality of housing and quality of living. How important are those factors?
They always quote it as something that's really, really important when they talk about clusters and how do you develop a cluster. We have a really nice environment in which to live, except for when it comes to the roads. And that is the number one thing that comes up all the time. Our roads are so congested that, but then I've just been to Silicon Valley, and I come back to Cambridge, and I go, hey, our roads are not as congested as Silicon Valley. So, I always got, or, Sao Paulo, if you've been to Sao Paulo, it's just crazy. So, looking around the world, when I come back to Cambridge, yes, we do have congestion, but actually the government's pumping in billions at the moment into infrastructure around Cambridge. That's not just roads, it's also the railways as well. So hopefully things might ease in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, but my question was really because it's
quality
small,
of life.
Yeah.
Quality of life is very important, but we still find that people want to move to Cambridge. I mean, this is our challenge that we have at the moment. Is that it's one of the large, the fastest growing areas of the UK. They would love to replicate this in the north of England. However, the draw of Cambridge is that it's a wonderful small city in which to do a highly sort of I wouldn't want to say dangerous, but sort of risky things, because you can set up a company. If it goes belly up, you're probably going to get a job with one of the other companies in Cambridge. So it's wonderful in that respect that you can actually experiment and give it a go. So yes, it's good in that respect.
Yeah, we're coming back to you later. Okay. Thank you so much, Shirley Jameson. And now we're going to our 3rd introduction, and the one who's giving us this introduction, his name is Jon Haag, and he is the Head of Innovation at Billerud Korsnäs. Please, Jon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not one of those persons that like to stand still, so I will do my best to stay put here. We don't have Cambridge phenomena, but we have Stockholm syndrome. So now I'm going to take you as a hostage, and after 10 minutes, maybe some of you love me a little bit. I'm actually not working at Head of Innovation, but I work with insights, so consumer insights, meaning that I have as a wonderful job to keep track of what's happening outside of our industry and then try to understand what should the forest industry do better to cope with the pace or the ideas or the innovations that other industries are doing. So I will try to give you that kind of viewpoints from my point of view. I've also been part of working with the report that we've been seeing today, and you can pick it up out there. And the focus for that group has been value creation, innovative leadership, and then try to attract venture capital or capital in any matter. So what I think is the first topic that I would like to give you a fling of is that when it comes to new business, you really should have the ambition to actually do new business. And I think when we look at mature industries, that's one of the biggest problems we've had. We have a very large core business normally, and it's loads of capex, it's loads of opex, it's loads of assets, it's loads of everything, and we don't want to fail with that. The problem is that normally we end up in some kind of commodity, and then you all of a sudden don't control your own agenda because interests or currencies or how expensive it is to borrow money defines more of your success than maybe your own business. So What I really would like to talk about is to redefine your business. And of course, you should redefine your business both when it comes to the core. If you have been selling cement, you could do something different than just selling cement. If you've been selling cars, you can do something more than just selling cars. And if you've been selling paper, you can of course do much more than just selling paper. And we've seen that a little bit more in other industries than in our own, I think. So what I pinpoint here is that we should have much more focus today when it comes in the companies, I think. If we want to reach new business, 20% of our turnover, maybe we should try to put 40% of all efforts to reach that 20% new business. And that is like a step change that I think we will see the coming years. Of course, it's as important to redefine the core because, and I will give you some examples, we still need to have the production of pulp, the production of carton board, the production of paper and even maybe newsprint. But we could do the business and the business model in complete new ways. And to do that, we need to cooperate with other businesses than our own. So then back to value chain. I thought I had a, okay. This is a typical view then from BillerudKorsnäs. We work with packaging and we do that almost only. And then you could see that we have forestry and we do the harvesting, we create the, we take the logs and we do the pulp and the paper or carton board. Then we have some, and we sell that material to a converter that actually makes maybe then a blister pack for pharmaceuticals. It could be AstraZeneca or GSK or whatever. And then it's sold in a pharmacy. In some countries, it's sold even in a grocery store. The problem is that if you remains producing just the material to a blister pack, you are absolutely exchangeable. And the business of focusing on just the blister pack is that you're creating maybe more value for someone else, but still you just charge, say, 0.1 euros for the carton or the blister pack. And I will show you that if you think differently, what's happening around us in the world is that value chains are interlinked. They are intertwining, they are merging, some will be disrupted, some of them will disappear, some of them will create completely new kind of value chains or even then value networks. And what you should really do is then to find out how could I go from being a substituted product in one value chain to become the hub between many value chains. Then you're going to be a winner. And this is not easy, but if we take this one, we still have the former value chain of doing packaging for a pharma brand selling pills at a pharmacy. But when we compare with the real world we live in, we have both home care, which will be a very large share of the care industry or hospital industry, because having people at the hospital costs about 400 euros a night. So if we can move people from hospital to have home care, it could be worth maybe 100 euros. It could be worth 50 euros, and there's a big win-win for society. And then the packaging could go from 0.1 euro to 10 euros or 50 euros, depending on how clever we do it. So if we could be a packaging here and we could link that to a e-journal at the hospitals, and we can be part of the decision-making for physicians, and if we could be part of keeping track of medicine dosage, the usage of the pills, we create much more value, but the packaging will be the hub of many value chains. And then we can create much more value than just being the carton board in the blister pack. Do you follow me? So what we call, or what I would like to call this, is then to go from having a product performance focus, which many process industries have had for a long time, in one value chain, to a business performance or ecosystem performance in an ecosystem of many value chains, or even then a value network. And if you can do this journey, you're going to survive. If you can do this journey, we can go from having growth rates of maybe 3, 4, 5%, and we can be at the growth rates of other unicorns having 20 or 50% annually if we find the golden spots. I'm absolutely sure. A little bit provocative, but that's my role. So just to explain again what this might mean for companies as I see it. I said go from product performance in one value chain, because when you work with product performance, you try to secure that you have a product that is a little bit better than competitors, but you still serve the closest customer, and you still do it with a cost-plus mindset. And then you can't go too far away, in my opinion. What you can gain from that is, of course, you can have better margins than competitors because you're a little bit better. You can have stronger relations with customers, and that's also very, very important. So it's nothing wrong with it. But if we could take part of that work and also go to business performance, which we then could call more value-based pricing, then we can create value for the customer and the customer's customer. Do you follow me? And we could serve different parts in one value chain or different parts in many value chains. And then we have much more to play around with. The sandbox from Munich is getting bigger and bigger. And it's just up to us how much we try to catch ourselves. The beauty right now is when value chains are disappearing or merging or intertwining, it's absolutely more acceptable than ever to take new positions. So even if you have been a material supplier, you're absolutely welcome to have a completely new position in the value network, and that you could create more revenue streams, and you can have like aftermarkets, which we don't have so many in our industry. And the last level, and this is what I would say to you now, 2017, maybe in 3 years there is another level, but ecosystem performance. How can we create things better for the customer, for the customer's customers, for the society? What if we can have the majors of the world loving our products, loving our services? Then you actually serve a network of customers, and you probably have much more of a unique business model, and then you can't really be substituted anymore. There are many examples of this. You have companies like Airbnb or Uber or Facebook, because they are the biggest media house, Facebook, without making the content. They are just in the top of the pyramid. Or you have Airbnb, the biggest night over supplier in the world without having any properties, for example. And we could have that within logistics. We could have that within many other areas where actually the forest industry could take a much bigger position, as I see it. And then we also turn from being quite much a commodity where you have the substitution effect always. If you go to a business performance focus with your development and innovation, you're going to be seen as an investment by the customers. And if you can go to the ecosystem performance, where you actually try to define the hub of an ecosystem, you're going to be part of a strategy for your customers. Am I going electrifying cars or not? Am I going smartphone or not? Am I going Office 365 or not? Am I going? Then you're part of very core decisions, and then you're not as the substitution effect will be less and less. So most important for me, we have to redefine business much more than we have done so far. You should do it with the core, you should do it with your new business. You should change your view on value chain and look at it as a value network, and the target is to create ecosystems. And if you do that in a good way, you do it with new business models, making you much more unique, and you're gonna harvest money in a new way, so to speak. Thank you.
you so much, Jon Haag. You make it sound so easy, but we know it's very difficult. Because I was going to ask you, when you're trying to transform the business models in the way you're doing, you're actually asking for having the competence within a company to know what's going around, what kind of new technologies there are, to see what's going on in the outer world. How do you secure that kind of competence, and how do you secure that kind of knowledge in the management, because you really need it? Hiring people like you?
I wouldn't say that that is the best for everyone. It is a tricky question. I think any industry that is quite mature has a certain profile of top management, for good and for bad. But I think I really like what we heard from Cambridge and Shirley, that, I mean, attract the best talents and let them do what they're passionate about. Then you're going to see much more change. And it's part of the report as well that you should have, I don't know how we say eldsjälar in English, but champions, we could say.
Champions.
If you have champions, and if we say that within packaging we're really going to solve the issue of food waste, then you need to have some champions actually doing the food waste, the trials, the pilots, and everything, and they probably don't do it even in Sweden. They do it in Jakarta or Shanghai. So you need borderless champions, I would say.
And you need also the ability to redefine your task. Yeah, business proposal. Because I was also thinking about, you were saying that what you really need to do in a mature industry, if you would like to change and transform your business models, you should put 40% effort into getting a 20% outcome. Is that an okay portion? Will that fit? Will be enough? Because there is also a time perspective here.
Yes. And I mean, that's part of the redefined thinking, according to me. That is, I mean, if you look at industries in general, they probably put 98% of the time to secure this year's budget. So then you're far away from reaching 20% new business. So you really need to redefine how you use your time and who in a company that should use the time on actually doing new. If you want to innovate in the big perspective.
One of the problems when we are running a mature industry and you are listed on the stock market, for example, you have the shareholders, they want the results, they want the profit, you have to present a quarterly review 4 times a year. And when you're working with this kind of models, it will take some time and you don't really know what those champions really are doing. You know they're costing a lot of money, but you're not knowing what they're producing actually, because there will be nothing happening, nothing, and all of a sudden it all will come. How do you create an awareness for the necessity of doing what you are calling for?
Plenty of opportunities. It just start trying to do differently, I think. One thing could be to have only 2 reports a year. Then you get some more time for doing new business, and we see companies going that way. Another thing is that you can work completely under the radar for a while, and then you show that we have done a lot of things that you didn't know before, but ta-da. Another thing is that you use it as part of your branding. So you could say that we, as a company, we will now try to make a part-time kidney in paper because people are waiting for kidneys in vain. And then you create a story and you tell people, you tell the public that we will try to do this. You attract talents and you have a lot of other companies coming there and they would like to do the paper kidney with you. And then after 5 years you say, we failed.
But we made a paper heart.
But we made a paper heart, or we made 10 other products that we haven't done before. And you know what? No one else tried to do a paper kidney.
But we attracted the champions.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jon. We're going to come back to you. And then we will continue, and I would say welcome up on the stage to Mrs. Helena Oskarsson, who is CEO of Vreta Kluster, not Kloster. No. So it's a very funny name.
Yes, it is. It's situated actually in Vreta Kluster. Yes, Helena Oskarsson, I'm very honored to be here in this company. Compared to Cambridge and Munich, we are maybe a startup cluster. a small one, a new one, and trying to do somewhat of the same things, but in a small scale so far. Myself, I'm an agronomist and also worked with research communication until I came to Vreta Cluster 5 years ago. And we are a resource for the green industries, and with the green industry we mean these: renewable energy, agriculture, horticulture, aquaculture, farm animals, horses, forestry, and food. All are actually the ones that are producing from the photosynthesis renewable material. The only industries doing that. So I've started to say this because we are the key to a sustainable society, I would say. So these industries are really important. In our cluster, we have the themes of business development and technical development, because in our region, Östergötland, we're good at techniques. We have a lot of technique at the university. We have a lot of process industry, manufacturing industry, also in the farming business. We have the air industry. We have a lot of technique. And then, so that's the strength we have, and we can offer to the rest of Sweden or anyone else. And then business development, since all these are raw material businesses, and they are always under enormous press regarding economy. So if we could contribute, and then together this forms innovation, then we do some use for these companies. And we try to be an active arena and a catalyst, arranging these weekly or daily conferences that you were talking about, acting as a bridge between research and industry, network, and have contacts to offer to anyone who wants it. And we are neutral. We are not owned by any sales interest or anything. So everyone can come to be there, to discuss, and to use us. And then organizing activities to these value chains to meet. Maybe some gaming company could meet with a farming company, and what will happen. So this is what we try to arrange. I haven't got a dot there, but we are situated, I can't point either, but we're situated 250 kilometers south of Stockholm. And here I have just pointed out some kind of a number of universities and academic institutions that we try to connect to. Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, that one.
This one.
Yeah.
This is where we are. So we are in outside of Linköping, a city of the same size of Cambridge, I just learned. And in Linköping is Linköping University. Thomas will talk later from there. And we have a big science park, Mjärdevi Science Park, that we are connecting to, and Lead Incubator and Norrköping Science Park. And then different kind of university, and then the Agriculture University, which is in Uppsala, that we also are connected with, or not cooperating with. So we try to be a resource for these academic institutions and the companies wanting to meet and connect. And these are the tools we have. So our aim is to create growth. And we are running networks, arranging seminars, workshops, trying to generate ideas and also help bringing these ideas into reality. So that's my job. And then we have a business park where we have today 30 companies staying there. And a small detail, we have a dog daycare there. And that's really important if you want to attract veterinarians or forest people. We have forest people in the business park, and they all have dogs with them. So this is a small detail important to bring together our network. And in my budget, I also I offer coffee breaks every morning. So everyone will come and everyone will network and meet over the organization borders. And I think this is the most important thing we have done so far, just offering this morning coffee break. Because we really have that we have been successful in getting the network going and running by itself. And then we have a conference facility, maybe this size, and a full-time manager of this conference facility. So we have 8,000 persons coming every year to have different meetings. And this is a driver, actually, for the networking and for the innovation talks. And these are the companies staying in the cluster at the moment. And when it comes to, so this is a wide range, mainly in agriculture, but also, as you see, Holmen and Södra, they are buying forest from the forest owners, so they are sitting in the cluster. These two houses, that's our cluster with the conference facility in the middle, and the White House is our new vision. We hope to build that in a year or so. We hope so. And there we want to have a lot of education together with the school we are a neighbor with, and with the companies and with the university, and also a testing facilities for different kind of industries in our branches. We are locally and regionally funded, so we have emerged from Östergötland. And we have, and then we, of course, projects, like everyone else. And then we make a lot of contacts nationally and internationally. So at the moment we're speaking with Food Valley in the Netherlands that are interested in Östergötland. And maybe we could be the door to them. We hope so. And we have been also traveling with the region to Silicon Valley and to see what are they doing here. That's so innovative. What can Östergötland do? And one thing we can do is networking, because they're really skilled in that. We have the skills in the university and in the companies. So we are one part of the networking ecosystem, you could say. And of course, they have more risk capital as well. So that's something that Sweden is working with, I would say. But this is our plans, and maybe this is the light green. Oh, this is in Swedish, sorry. The first is networking. That's what I think we should do, and also event and ID generation, and then try to work with these IDs. The light green ones are what I think we at Vreta Cluster should do. And then when we have tried to facilitate the IDs to be something that someone else can take, then it starts to get projects, and hopefully that's companies doing these projects. So we want to be in the early phase helping. And then we want to, it says communication, and we want to be good at that, helping communicate. Because these businesses are small often, and they're not working so much with communication, but we need to spread the word, what's happening, and they are really interesting for the companies, for example, in the Miljöer Science Park, working with digitalization. We try to connect them. So this is the process. So I try to stay very close in the light green and not sail away to do everything else. I just want to show you some examples. This is really what we try to do. This is the Ministry of Agriculture in Sweden, and there is a food dialogue, and we were the place for that. So we can arrange that. Here are a lot of students coming from the Linköping University working with technique and economics. And this was maybe the first time that they worked with company cases from our businesses. Normally they work with Saab and Siemens or other bigger technology companies. So this is an important networking activity. And this were a seminar on unmanned aircrafts in forestry and agriculture. So we invited the technology owners and the businesses with the problem owners, connecting them, and they found out different development projects to carry on. This is a really nice theme that I would really like to. I think Östergötland can do something here, because we have Miljöer and we have the university, and we can really. I would like to dig deep into this. So last year we did this. Same theme. There is an unmanned tractor and automatic, also unmanned vehicle that's doing services for the farming. And we would like to be a part of developing services here. So this is what we're doing on a daily basis. We're part of the innovation system in Östergötland. So they have the same kind of, you can see, picture of innovation process, ID, evaluation, project. And together we work with the other actors in the system. It has generated a few projects, big ones, for growth. Visual Sweden is on visualization, and I dream of bringing our businesses into that. And Växtzone, that's for growing companies, and we are a part of that together with 9 science parks incubators in Sweden. So we try to be a part of the whole innovation system in the region and in the nation. This is a picture of Mjärdevi Science Park, which is 6,000 persons working there, and their theme is Internet of Things and digitalization. And we really want to bring us together with them. I really want to integrate there and do things together with them. And there I show you some examples of companies that are already situated there, working with forestry. And one of this is this, making apps for the forestry sector, IT-bolaget Per & Per. So they have made for Södra the forest planning tools, software and apps. And working with also these companies. And this is a company we have relations with from Vreta Kluster. And then Foran, also they're working with the laser scanning of forest, making maps, very detailed ones, and making tools out of them. And together with them, they were participating when we had this smart farming event. Maybe they could use their skills also in the agriculture business. It ends up like these 3D prints, and here my skills in this technology ends, but I want them to cooperate with our company, so I want to be the facilitator. And then I would like to mention this, because this is very new. The other day, a lot of money came to Linköping University and RISE and a lot of other actors for developing a digital cellulose center. And in our neighboring city, Norrköping, they have a printed electronics arena. So they print electronics on paper. So they can do intelligent paper, you could say. And now they have got money for developing this center. And this means a lot of possibilities, I think. So this is really interesting. And they have different ideas of how to use these. For packaging, of course, energy, making batteries maybe, healthcare, and also in tools in food production. So this is really interesting. And this is one idea of how to print large-scale batteries with organic electronics. So this was 3 examples of things going on in the region. And the Vreta cluster tries to have a relation with this and try to be a facilitator. And we are very inspired of what you are talking about. We are a small-scale place, but try to be a facilitator. And a startup, I would say. So, welcome to us, and welcome to use us, I would say.
Thank you so much, Helena Oskarsson. You're saying you are directed towards the green industry and the agriculture sector. Do you see any differences if you had, for example, been head of another cluster working more to the vehicle industries or something else? Do you find it more difficult to raise money, for example? Or easier?
I don't know. I don't know. Actually, we have a lot of big industries in also these sectors. These are really wide sectors: forestry, agriculture. So I think the government of Sweden is not really focusing on agriculture. It's focusing more on forestry and vehicles. So maybe in the agriculture area, maybe that's more difficult. But as a whole, I don't know. I think we will work it out.
Yeah, because it's like you say, normally we don't talk so much about the agricultural areas, we don't talk so much about the green sector. However, we know it's still very, very important, and it's got a lot of future opportunities. So my question is also, we have heard here before how important it is to be able to attract champions. Do you feel that you can attract champions, that you got the means and the tools to do so?
It seems like it. Since I'm really, happily surprised by the interest from Food Valley in Östergötland and Vreta cluster. What do they see? Because they are like your clusters maybe, but in food. They're really big, they're multinational, and they are really powerful. What do they see in Östergötland and Sweden and Vreta cluster? And they like our closeness to the, what's that? The raw material. We are still close from the producer to the manufacturer. And they like our our education system, for example. They want to make e-learning systems together with us. They like the technology, the visualization, and things like that. So it seems like we have things that other big players maybe like, and that will bring resources.
And how much do you cooperate with other sectors? with other science parks and with other facilitators?
Yeah, we try to do that. In this Växt Soon project I mentioned, it has only been for a few weeks. We are very new. We have only 5 years. But then this project has been for 2 years now. We are 9 incubators and science park in that, and we have now learned to get to know each other. So from now on, it will be much easier to do things together, and I think we are, from our perspective, we are working a lot together.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens in the future.
Yes.
So you'll be back after the pause. Thank you so much, Helena Oskarsson. And now we will have our last introducer before the coffee break. And her name is Maria Hollander, and she is the CEO of Paper Province. Please, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here, being able to talk about our activities up in Värmland. Now we'll see how you see maybe why we see ourselves as a forest bioeconomy hotspot. We have a lot of this raw material up in Värmland. There maybe? Where do I change the... That one?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we are also proud to be, I think, the smallest in this context today. We are 273,000 inhabitants in Värmland in total. But we have our backbone, was the word, all of the mills, sawmills, paper mills, and also bioenergy plants that really makes out a very important system for us to build and continue to build the forest bioeconomy. And they also work together with all these suppliers, different suppliers, small ones, big ones, and they are the platform in our innovation environment, of course, with all their knowledge. Not that they are all that innovative. That is not the case, actually. We want to realize the forest-based bioeconomy, and for us, the story behind it is very, very important to also find the champions that really want to be in this game. And it is the fossil-free society we want to build. We also have we are very lucky because we have the same vision together with the region Värmland, with several municipalities in the region, and with at least some parts of the university. And we have a very close cooperation here, and a cooperation also, OECD say, also they have measured this and say that we are good at this. And our university, fairly small, young university, poor university, they have also got prizes from Vinnova to be the best university in Sweden on cooperation. So we are proud of that, actually. We are a part of this innovation system, the cluster organization. We are 10 persons working. Since 2013, we have this long-term financing from Vinnova, aiming to work much more focused with innovation and development, and that has made a huge change for us and our ability to really do something important and do also a strategic change, because before we worked strictly with paper and paper mills and the paper packaging industry. Now we are more, like Jon said, a hub within several value chains. We want to work with all the value chains origin from the forest industry. And we need it. because, as I said, there are not so much innovations going on. We have not people knocking on our door every day. So we want to attract more in this. And what can we offer then? Competing with the big cities and challenged by the urbanization? Well, in this specific case with the forest industry, we have one thing, and that is the raw material. And Göran Persson said at a seminar a few weeks ago, you don't find any mills at Djurgården, and that is true, actually. So that is what we can offer. We can actually offer the real thing. And a lot of services as a cluster organization and as a part of the innovation system, as we have heard here before, is networking, very appreciated by innovators coming from the outside. If you have an innovation, you come out from Chalmers, for example, an innovation for the process industry, that is not so easy. Where to go with this innovation? But we can offer a network. We have worked a lot with the companies, so they should help us open up the mills, for example, that they meet the small innovators when they come. That is a very important thing for the small companies. The close cooperation with regional authorities and municipalities, for us, that is very important because we need to be many people that try to offer good things for the innovators and the companies. We are also very pleased that we have RISE actually permanent in our region now. That was not the case a few years ago, and that is very important for us to have the institute close. Infrastructure. Not only we have an airport, at least we had yesterday, it's questioned all the time, but there is also another infrastructure with premises. There's a lot of free premises in Värmland, I can promise you, if you want to start up a firm there, and it's cheap. We have pilot machines in some places that you can use, and we are very fond of the testbed concept. That is very high on the agenda nowadays, even from the government. And we think that is something for us to offer to the Swedish innovation system. And we try to kind of build an own concept around the testbed, and we like to see it like this, that it is a place where we engage both academy, institute, the industry, of course, and also the public actors. And in this case, it's the municipality. The municipality around the testbed can take a very, very active part. And we also try to find a process to help the innovators go on when they approach this environment, go explore. That is the learning curve, for example. And yeah, you can guess, it's under development. We are not finished all the steps yet. We try to attract students to the testbed. Innovation, competition, for example. And try to make this to a creative environment that attracts both researchers, young people, and companies. And we have done this successfully once. You could think we have done it 100 times. We haven't. But this is a very good story for us. We had the Lignoboost machinery down in Bäckhammar. It's a little village outside the small city Kristinehamn in Värmland. But we have Nordic Paper there, a mill. And the Lignoboost technology was commercialized, so Valmet, who owned it, didn't want the pilot plant anymore. They also worked with RISE in this, and RISE then came to us and asked, can we do something together? And I think we as a cluster organization, a neutral part, had a very important role in this, to be able to create this project with 18, 19 different actors, many companies involved in creating the Ligno City testbed. And that is a project financed from Vinnova right now. We have 1 year left. But so far, it has been very successful for us. And, of course, we want to repeat this. And I show this list when I'm out, and some is true, and some things are almost true. But this is a mix of different environments that we have in Värmland right now. So much is true. Not all of them are test beds. And I think that if we could do even more of this, a kind of sharing economy, also companies sharing their resources, the machinery, the laboratory equipment maybe that stands unused for a month, they can share it and we can visualize it like this. Then we have something to offer as a innovation platform and or workshop. The two marks there, the red marks, that is two startups that have came to our region that we also are very proud of. It's Renfuel that established in the Ligno City facility. They are doing biofuels, and it's Renew Cell that are working with an innovation that are going to recycle cotton, and that is very good for Värmland indeed to have these companies. And I also forgot to say, maybe I have time, but Nordic Paper took a very good approach in this testbed project. They said, we are going to be a good neighbor. And to be a good neighbor for a mill, I think that is a very good approach and a way to work together with entrepreneurs and let other companies into their area. So a good neighbor, and Kristinehamn municipality, they wanted to be a good host. And that is also something that they have continued to work on. I think that is good things. We have, as I said, we have worked since 2013, approximately, more focused on innovations. But it's not so easy. We have, I think, in our database, 14 active cases now that are innovations. So there are more to wish for, of course. We could do more. But we have a few that is actually very good and that we believe in a lot. We have innovations around biojet fuel and also other biofuels, biocomposites for 3D printing, food pads. We have an interesting company, Cellcom. They are doing bed linen from cellulose. They have been working with a lot with the service perspective. We have a lot of knowledge of service innovation in our university, and I think I hear about when Jon talks, he talks in a way about how or the result that service innovation perspective could make to a company. That is more what is the benefit of our product? How can we come closer to our customer and our customer's customer? How can we add margins to what we really do already? And they also constantly remind us that the product is of no use until the day a customer actually use it and are willing to pay for it. And that is actually something that you can remind innovators of also. They don't always think about that. But Cellcom, they started with their bed linen and they wanted to sell it to the hospital. And they did. But they wanted to go a little bit further, so they started to work with RISE service labs that are present in our region, and also more together with the hospital, a pre-study, and they were thinking, how actually are our bed linen used? How can they make a difference in the hospital environment? What are the actual needs of the hospital? And then they realized that the biggest need from hospital, and this is a new word for me, it is to limit infectivity, the viruses going around. They want to limit infectivity. This is a huge problem for the hospitals. And from that insight, Cellcom and the RISE and the hospital have started to, or have proceeded working with this concept. And they are not ready, but maybe Cellcom should offer instead clean rooms, because that is the actual need. That is what the hospital need. And then the bed linen could be a part of their offer, but maybe they also could offer the service clean rooms, and the nurses could focus on what they are good at. So that could be a result from a service perspective in an innovation process. This is a whole nother story, a mechanical machine that press water from biomass. this is also a kind of success story. It's not on the market yet, but it's very close. It has been very close for 4 years now or something, but I do indeed think it's very close now. The funny thing is that we have an innovator. The elderly man actually came from Switzerland. He had this idea, and he came to Värmland, of course, then, and he met an engineering company that helped him construct this. They went to a workshop that built the prototype, and then it came closer to the commercialization phase, and then they started to. They didn't know how to do it, and the innovator didn't want to start up a new company. He was tired. So they came to us, and we tried a new idea. Young people, champions, filled with energy. We find 2 of these, maybe the only 2 ones at Karlstad University. There are not a lot of entrepreneurs, but these 2 were absolutely the best ones. And we took a senior guy who knows everything about the forest industry, and these made the perfect team. We gave them 3 months to perform a pre-commercial project. They got salary, the young ones at least, and they had one goal, we can say, and that was to have a letter of intent with the first customer for the first scale-up machine then in real environment. And they worked like it was very fun to follow them, and they got a lot of problems during these 3 months. Everything was a problem, with finance and patents, and also all the customers they had to meet. But they succeeded, so they had a letter of intent, and that was a couple of years ago, actually. Then you struggle because it's struggle in innovation. They didn't get the money, of course, and a lot of things happened. But now they have got some millions in support, and they are ready to buy the first machine. And this machine has so lot of potential. I don't know if you can call it radical innovation, but it presses the water from the biomass for 1/10 of the ordinary or the solutions for drying that are available now. And they have interested people from all around the world and from a lot of value chains, actually. And there is also interest in the water coming out. There are goodies in the water. And there is a possibility to also create new material from the biomass when it's gone through the machine. So we call this, and I see, I forgot the name. You said to us the BioExpress, the name. Do you remember? Pia, yeah. So we really took that into this process. We call that 3-month process BioExpress, and that came from you. Time is over. But some challenges. Everything is not easy to work. We have huge problem, I think, when we look at our small, medium-sized companies in the workshops. They have small margins. They are not willing to grow. They are not willing to work with innovation. And they really have to take on the digitalization, robotics, automation, and that is a huge challenge for us. It's hard to get time from people. We need time from the big companies, and we have to get people to the meeting. It's not easy. Gender and diversity, very, very, very important for innovation. We have a huge problem there. Not only we, all of you that are in the forest industry. And at last, it's from our perspective, of course, from Värmland perspective. We have the forest, we have the solution for the bioeconomy, we think. But in these regions, in these parts of the country, we are often poor. We have 16 municipalities, and they are very poor, all of them. How can we find a system that maybe helps these areas that are so important to build the forest bioeconomy to get us some more money to our young universities? Not all stays in Stockholm and Gothenburg. I would be satisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I think actually we will stop here because those challenges that you're naming there is exactly what we're going to discuss after the coffee break. Okay. So I suggest we have a coffee break right now. We will see each other here again at 5 past 11. 5 past 11, so be back at 5 past 11. We'll start with discussion and you will be all invited in the audience as well. So be back then. Thank you. We got almost an hour now. We've got 50 minutes before we'll end this seminar. We're going to have a discussion with the participants in the panel who gave us these kind of introductions we heard earlier. We are also going to have a discussion on leadership before we close this session. And as I told you, I will invite you to come with comments, short remarks or questions to the panel. Then just raise your hand and I will see to it that you get in. But do remember to use the microphones because we're streaming in this seminar and otherwise people will not hear what you are saying. But I would start first with my eminent panel and I will ask you, we heard a lot of interesting introductions here. You got different kind of views, you're coming from different kind of places and different kind of companies. We got a broad overview from Munich over to Cambridge to Vreta and to Värmland. And I would like to ask, because we've been talking a lot about innovation environments and how to promote innovation within forest industry. So out of the discussion we had this far, what would you say, which are the key to success if you would like to transform your company and transform a business model into a more innovative one, going from value chain to a value system? What will be the key to success? I don't know, should I start with you, Helena?
Well, I think the keys to success is to listen to, from my point of view, to listen to companies, to listen to what's really needed and do that and nothing else. That's what but I don't know if that's the answer of the question of the value chain. But I think in so many people want things with the companies, want the companies to do different things from the national level or regional level, but I think one key to success is to listen to what the company wants. Do the company always know what they should do? No, but they know what their problem is and what their challenge is and how to solve it. Maybe they don't know, but I think that's the way to start because that's how you get the engagement from the companies to do what they feel is their need. And maybe they will find out later on, okay, we need also this.
Yeah, because I was thinking about, since you're working with an incubator, you're working with as a facilitator, sometimes I could guess that a company says they're defining the problem. We've got this and this kind of problem. We see that income is growing very slowly. We are losing markets, and we think we have this problem. And then I can guess that some of your companies and startups say, no, that's not a problem. Your problem is another one, and I've got a solution to it.
Yes, and if they can meet and then they can try it out or test, maybe that's fantastic. So that's what we want to facilitate, they to meet. And if the company finds out, okay, I need this, then that's perfect. But I think you should be very careful with the energy from the companies. If you want engagement and involvement, you need to really listen to what is their real need. And
really to understand them.
Yes, really, and listen with very big ears. And I think
small mouth.
Yes.
Okay. And Shirley, you were telling us what the keys to success have been as regard the Cambridge enterprise. But following this discussion we had right now, and also thinking about that the theme for this seminar is actually how we can promote innovation within the forest industry, what would be your recommendations then? Are they the general ones or are there any special ones?
Okay, it is working, okay. One of the things that I would suggest, I'm just thinking about the fact that it's an established industry. I'm thinking about a quote that maybe some of you know already, that you're not going to invent the light bulb by making improvements on the candle. If you keep on improving your candle, you're not going to invent the light bulb. And I think that's what you really need to be thinking about, is outside the box. And one of the things that before I joined the University of Cambridge, I was a consultant, and very early on in my career as a consultant, I was asked to go into a very large established company. It was a very large, well-known one in the UK, and they wanted to assess why they weren't getting innovation out of one of their divisions. So we were sent in to do an analysis. So I was given one group, and my other colleagues were given other groups to look at. And so I sat down with the group, the research group I was with, and I said to them, okay, give me some facts about your background so I can understand some context. And it turned out that this group of 7 people had been together all together as the same research group for over 20 years. No wonder they weren't coming out with any new ideas. You've got to mix it up. You've got to have people in there that challenge with completely coming, as I said, before when talking about Cambridge, is that you'll have, people from many different disciplines coming together in networking over dinners, and that's where you can sometimes find that sparks will fly and that you'll get some creativity of solutions that you may not have thought of before. So that's one thought.
So you were telling us that innovation really requires networking, and you're saying that networking is really a contact sport.
Yes.
But who are networking? Because sometimes it seems that they bring together as in networking, they're coming from the same kind of sector and
yes.
they don't really mix it up. But how broad should those networking be?
Okay, so going back again, I mentioned it briefly. One of the things we did quite early on in about 1998-99 was create something called the Cambridge Network. And that brought together people from all across the Cambridge business environment in which to meet on a regular basis under different, there's numerous events. It's like Munich. There's an event you can go to every night of the week. And that brings in a cross-section of people. But we also then have specialist groups, and in the specialist groups, we also invite people from different backgrounds as well, and we do that within the university as well. So we have strategy groups, initiatives, and we bring in people from different disciplines on purpose within the university to think about different ways of finding solutions. So yes, it's a contact sport, and it's a contact sport with people you wouldn't normally meet in your environment.
Okay, Helmut Schöneberger, I know that you're also working a lot with networking at the in Munich, but I also would like to know, do you would like to add some other key factors to success when making this kind of radical innovation?
I totally agree with Shirley and with Helene. So I think on the one side you have technology push, and technology push comes out of great research institutions, and so you have to have this environment. And then, Lena, you were talking about listen to the customer, and I think this is now a different game, and where universities, I think, are not the best players. And then the huge buzzword digitalization comes in. So if you had you gave, I think, a fantastic presentation talking about new business models, new value chains, and if you really want to go this way, I think you have to understand these totally different value chains, these different industries, like the health industry. It's not the forest industry; it's the health industry, and you have to have experts who build digital products to exactly cover the value chain, to reorganize the processes, to reorganize the communication lines, and to build these new services and digital products. And out of university, normally these people do not come. So if you really want to have people who are able to build these products, you have to hire people from Microsoft or Google or whatever. And so what we are doing in Munich is we established own schools for that. It's called the Digital Product School, where the whole German automotive industry, for example, so Volkswagen, BMW, Daimler, they all come to us, and we help them that their employees start to build digital products and be able to really program, to code these new services, because the 120,000 people at BMW can't do it. Maybe 1,000 out of them. But if you really want to change, you need not 1,000 people. You need maybe 20,000 who are able to rebuild and rebuild BMW and come up with new mobility services. And I think this is then the transformation. You showed this the slide with the old business, and then on top on the old business, the new business. But what does it mean? And you said, okay, new FTEs, but who are these new FTEs? And you have to have people who are able to design and really build and scale these services. And this is the biggest problem. And I'm not sure how it looks in your companies, but at least in the German companies, there are not enough of these people who are able to do it. So the question is, how do you hire and get the right people and build up this workforce?
Thank you, Helmut. I was just curious about something that Shirley said when she was talking about Cambridge. I mean, Cambridge is a small town, and I was wondering about location. Why Munich? Was it a mere coincidence, or did Munich have some specific factors making it very suitable for building that kind of business that you're running there?
It's an evolution. So before World War II, Munich was the rural area. It was the agricultural center. It was not the high-tech center. That was in northern Germany. That was in Berlin. This was in Essen and Duisburg. And then we had World War II, and then Germany was divided, and the American sector was Bavaria, and so millions of refugees poured into Munich, and with these companies like Siemens was founded in Berlin, and so Siemens was relocated from Berlin to Munich, and then we had this huge jump start after World War II, and then the Bavarian government, I think, did a great job to really industrialize the country. And now it's the opposite. Now it's the industrial heart of Germany. This is within 60 years, yeah.
So it's grounded in history and other facts as well. Jon Haag, you were talking about this transformation from products into ecosystems, really, and you made it sound so easy. And we know it's not really that easy. One way is to recruit all those and attract all those champions. But another way can also be talking to your customers and talking to other people around. How do you do it?
Talking to anyone, more or less. Yes.
Well, not to anyone.
No, more or less anyone. I would say, because I was thinking about my answer on your first question to Helena. But I think something that I really love is unspoken needs. So how do I find, or how can we find unspoken needs in society? And then, so that's really my key to success, and that you can look from many different angles. So one then is to go from selling a product or selling a service, but rather solving a problem for someone. And we don't know if we solve the problem today for the converter that we sell paper to, or if we're solving the problem to a brand owner that we never do business with, or if we solve the problem for a major in Shenzhen or Pune or Mumbai that we never met. So we need to get out much more to find the real unspoken needs in society. And I think that's maybe one of the keys for Cambridge, because you set society first, and now you're unique. And then what we see in local clusters like Munich and Paper Province and in the Vreta cluster, that you find the need locally, and there you can find the champions, and there you can find the problems to solve. So I think defining unspoken needs and make that very sexy.
And creating tools to find those unspoken needs. Okay, Maria Hollander, you were listing a lot of challenges in the end of your presentation. And I guess in those challenges, the answer to those challenges, there is also the key to success. So what would you say would be the major factors?
I must say, first of all, the money for us as a cluster organization to be able to work and support the companies more in a better way. The money from Vinnova, that was 10-year funding, money that we also can use more flexible and from our own needs. That made a huge difference for us. And the long term, that we have the long-term funding also made it possible for us to change the strategy in the cluster. And that was kind of a big moment, because in my board I have the mill managers and I have the consultancy managers and machinery suppliers. And they don't look at the future in the same way, but you also understand that there is a customer-supplier relationship in this board. So that is complicated. But when we had this money, or we thought that maybe we could have this money, we had to think about the future and what is the new strategic position in 10, 15 years. It made... we thought, you talked about before, if we can kind of push the companies in a direction that they wouldn't have gone alone. And I think that was what happened in that moment. We saw the forest bioeconomy strategy instead, which is challenging, because then you work maybe with both energy companies and biofuel companies. It's a systemic approach, which could be not that easy for the mills to work with the biofuel suppliers, for example. But to have that long-term view made us really it made us able to work through this new strategy and get this money and to work very successful in a way then with innovation. So money talks always, and the long-term financing in the innovation system is very important and something that all clusters in Sweden are struggling with. I think also the story, to tell a story, to get the engagement from many. Someone who talks about cluster development, I listened to recently, said that we have to talk about how we meet global challenges. That is a very important story today, also to attract employees or attract people who want to live maybe in our region. I listened to someone from Google who talked about to be attractive, and he said that every company today have to be able to answer, how are you doing the world better, or the world better for people? And I think it's very much true. I think,
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I will go back to you, Shirley, because you had a lovely picture metaphor. You were talking about, are we working with a plantation or are we working with a rainforest? And since we're discussing forestry, Swedish forestry industry today, I think that's a lovely metaphor. But I think it might be difficult enough working in an area like you working with, and having that perspective. We choose in the rainforest, even if we don't know what will come up. But how do you create a rainforest environment within a company?
That I probably can't answer very well, because I don't work in a company. However,
but I'm going to let the other one answer that question as well.
Okay. However, it is possible to do. I mean, I was recently in China at a company called Haier. I don't know if you know Haier. They're the largest manufacturer of domestic equipment in the world, and they come from a city called Qingdao in China. And I was at their headquarters. Now, China's never been known for being innovative. They were known as people who would take an idea product and they would manufacture it, and maybe a bit of improvement. Haier have done something really amazing. They brought together a group that is specifically to do innovation. And I sat there listening to them, and they were sort of saying, what can we learn from you? And I was sitting there thinking, my gosh, what can we learn from that group? So I think it is possible, but it is sort of like they've brought together a specific group to do that rainforest type of thinking. And that is one example I can think of immediately off the top of my head, that, it can work, but you've got to be brave about doing it and allowing these people to fail. If you don't allow failure, you're never going to get invention. Person I was speaking to just at break time. He was naming a whole bunch of people that we know, on a daily basis, their names, and they all failed before they produced the idea that actually has become a household name that you use. And I think that that is what you need to create, is an environment in which you allow that creativity and also the failure that will happen with it.
I will bring that question on to you, Jon, because that's exactly, you need to have room for failure, but it's not always that shareholders accept it or the board of directors accept it. How do you create room? How do you create an area where you actually can work, test ideas, fail, and come back again within the company? Is that possible, or do you really need to do that in an external context, working like with incubators, external incubators, or working with this kind of science parks and other things? Or can you create that kind of opportunities within a company? What is then needed?
Of course you can, but I think it's both maybe a question of culture, but also a question of strategizing your innovation. So we have a good example in the report, which is DSM in Netherlands, and they just decided that we're gonna run innovation in a different way. So their innovation center is like a division, and the division runs many platforms of emerging business opportunities, and they think that 1 out of 5 should succeed.
And the division is reporting to the CEO or to whom?
To the CEO.
To the CEO.
And then you have institutionalized that we're going to see 4 out of 5 failures, but that's part of the plan.
And that's also what you what they communicate out to the market and out to the external world.
Yeah, and if 2 out of 5 is successful, then you're, then you're really, really, really good. Mm-hmm. So it's about looking in new KPIs. I think the rainforest idea, for me, it's actually 2 very valid points. One is slack time, because we have, by efficiency in Sweden and Germany, we don't have slack time anymore, and then we don't have so many innovations either. So we also need to find out how can we then, if we hate slack time, if we don't think that that is valuable, we need to institutionalize even slack time. And that could be to go to an incubator or to go somewhere else where safety first and maybe spotting the budget is not number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, number 7 on the agenda. And then you can create different things. And you can do that by having a unit, a group, a division, but it's all possible to do.
I would like to ask you as well, Helmut, because what we're talking about now, it really requires a very heavy involvement and support from the top management in order to succeed. And according to what you know and the experience you have, what do you see in the top management? Do they really have this kind of focus? Or, of course, you are a bit biased because the company you meet will be the one who are dedicated, really?
I think it really depends on the company, and there are companies, I think, which are really doing a fantastic job, and some are sleeping. And if, for example, now in the automotive industry in Germany, I think everybody's afraid. So if you talk to many board members of the large companies, they say the chance that we survive is 50%. Yeah. So and these are the most important companies of Germany. Okay, and I think they are not kidding. They really think, okay, now we are in a phase of transformation, and if we do not change from a classical car manufacturer to a mobility service provider, the game will be over. Okay, and then these people have a different set of priorities, and they spend, I think, most of their time not to optimize the plant, but to set up these new services and these new platforms and transform the company. And also the resources they locate are enormous. So we are not talking about having a little bit of slack time, but we are talking about building up new departments with 2,000 people who are only working on autonomous driving. Okay, we are talking of huge efforts. And there are other industries, and when you talk to these other industries, they say, okay, if we have 5% spare time to do something, then we also try to do the digital transformation. But it's not a hobby for the weekend, sorry, and it will not work. And there are tons of people out there who are doing this as a 7-day job to really build up these new value chains, as you described it. So I personally know a few companies in Israel which are now in the digital field, and they are really working on disrupting the value chain there. And these guys are pretty clever, and there are a lot of them, and they work 7 days a week. Yeah.
Because what you describe here is that actually companies, and that's a very common pattern, that actually companies reacting, trying to change when they are facing a crisis, severe crisis, when it's a question about survival, and people management understand this is a question about survival. But really, what you want to have do is starting this process before you're there at the crisis level. And then I would like to ask you, Maria, because some has been describing the forest industry as fat and happy. I mean, it goes fairly well, going business as usual. It's a capital-intensive industry, so why take the risk of taking in new business models which you don't know if they will succeed or whether they will fail? How can you promote this kind of innovation thinking in business before they are at a crisis? Easy question.
That was a very easy question. Well, for the big companies, like Billerud, Korsnäs here and the other mills, I don't think we as a player has so much to do for you, because you have the money and you stay informed and you hire people like you to really get the trends and the knowledge. But I think we can play a role for the small and medium-sized companies, and that is actually to inform them. They don't have the time to be updated about the trends or what's happening and new method. Oh, you know what I mean. And they have to be reminded about that they have to stay attractive. We have to definitely remind them that they should work with the gender problem, for example. So we can kind of see what happened in the surroundings, and we can give them the support, give them the information, give them the inspiration. We can also make them meet their customer. For in our region, the demanding customer is often the mill then. And to come closer to the mill could be very important for the small companies to develop their business and find new offerings to the big company. So we can do that, but they have to want it themselves, and that is not always the case either.
And then I would like to ask you, Helena, a similar question, because we heard Jon was talking here about that you need to pick up the unspoken needs. But if you look at the agriculture sector and green sectors that you're working with, sometimes I believe there are unknown needs.
Unknown by the companies?
Yes.
Maybe.
Because it's not very often, I mean, the forest industry is advanced, but if you look at some other the green sectors, I know them because I'm involved in them, I mean, they're not really high-tech.
But we are. This is if I'm now speaking from agriculture, we're highly high-tech. And I think the production, what do you say, productivity development in farming has been higher than in any other business. You get today for 1 kilo of wheat 1 crown, and that you did also in the 70s. So how can these companies survive? By development, producing more per person, per unit, per everything. So they are highly productive, highly technological, but we haven't been able to communicate this. I think actually communication is one tool for us. And we talked during the pause here about this, the resources. We have the raw materials outside of the cities that we need to buy this sustainable society. And the sustainable society, many young people want to build that. We need to communicate to them. We have the tools for it. You should work with us, combining this with technology. I think that's a perfect match. And as we talked also in the pause, you can stay here in Värmland. You can ski all the year around. And all the year, more than you can in other regions maybe. And you can have a nice life, and you can also work with these very life-important issues. So I think
if you like skiing.
If you like skiing, if you love...
Not so good if you're good in golfing.
I think you have golf courses, don't you? And you have canoeing and water. Yeah, but you have qualities of life you can offer in these regions. We have poor resources, like Maria is pointing out, economically. But I think this will change, and we need communication to make it change quicker.
Yeah, so it's about the learning process and also a question about communication.
Yes, actually communication is a strategic tool to make these changes. And these unknown needs, I think young people and also the companies, they know their own driving forces. They have their own driving forces. It's not only technology driving them. They have different drivers. To listen to this. Yeah. And to try to help that, to facilitate that. That makes us closer to the solutions, I think.
Thank you. I told you I could take some questions from the audience, but I haven't seen anyone well at last because we're running out of time. So if you would like to pose a question, make a remark, this is a minute. So I got you over there, so please take the microphone. Push the button. I think you should have the button put in. So you have to press the button while you're speaking.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, but it's streamed. The seminar is streamed. No, but that wasn't always working, was it? Because there was a light on it. Okay, then. Never mind. I will repeat the question, please.
It's not that much a question, it's more a remark. I think it's important to have champions at different levels. One is to get the cluster together. And if you look at the impressive cluster we have in Munich, it's important to get the competencies we see are important to have in the cluster in the future. And my reading is that Susanne Klassen has been instrumental in getting this together. And if I compare that with the forest industry here in Sweden today, we don't have the kind of champions driving that we need more champions. We need also champions at the lower level in the units, in the cluster, of course, we get the right.
So if I try to conclude what you say is that we really need champions in different kind of clusters and on different levels of those clusters. When we're talking about forest industries, that's a special kind of champions we need there. Was that correct?
Yeah, we don't have the top.
No, we don't have a top. Yeah.
And we need that in order to
Yeah.
move the forest industry in the direction June is speaking about. And I'm very much supportive of the way you are describing it. It is the disruptive market values we have to get to.
Yeah.
And the only way those unknown demands to get there is by trial and error.
Yeah. Yes, I think if I should repeat that, you were talking about the necessity of having champions for different kind of levels, different kind of clusters, and you were talking about also having champions for the forest industry. I don't know if you would like to comment on that, Jon?
Yes, and I think you can also think, I mean, what I think that we do as mature businesses today is that we envy a little bit the unicorns. I mean, the startups that have become really big, because what they do, Sergey Brin of Google and Elon Musk of Tesla or SpaceX, they actually spend some own money, and then they decide who should sit in my board. And then they know that the board that I have, they will say yes to my ideas. And then they create the board, actually, the champion of doing new things. But I think we are stepwise going in that direction, even in mature companies now, because we see the last 3 years a much higher rotation of board members. Maybe not really in forest industry, but in many others. And we're going to pinpoint, so we have different kind of champions even in the board the coming 5 years, I'm quite sure.
Because you don't want two conservative structures up there deciding. I think we... I don't... Is it working?
They work now.
Yeah, a very short comment because we're running out of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important in the process. We should remember that all of this is a process, and a lot of it is a social process. And we have too many engineers and market economists involved in the process. We need to have people with social knowledge involved in the process, behavioral people, psychologists. Otherwise, we will fail in the end.
So we need a broader diversity. I think that it was a comment that all will agree upon. And you will have a very short.
Yeah, I'm from the academia, and I would agree on that. But I will also tell you all to help us to create those programs, because at now people want more of the same old engineers and so on, and that won't work in the future. So we need help from you to persuade those who make decisions on our programs that we need to mix behavioral sciences with engineering and such to solve the problems of the future. Thank you.
You get a tip. Force them to read Euripides and Jonathan Franzen. Yes, last one up there. Keep the button pressed.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I also have a question to the panel in terms of what is your impression of the power and fuel of crowdsourced innovation to empower the innovation in the forest industry?
Anyone want to comment on that one? Jon, Helmut, no one?
I can take a short one. I think, I mean, we've seen evidence that crowdsourcing works everywhere. I think, though, that we have a bigger barrier in the forest industries because the people who know something know that it is high capital intensive. So what can I do even with a crowdfunding amount of money? But we will see that maybe we can actually innovate much more without rebuilding any plant whatsoever. We can do better medical packaging. We can do better hospital beds with the existing products we have today. And then it's just about innovating further down the value chain.
And then I say thank you to the panel. So thank you, Helmut Schönenberger. Thank you, Shirley Jameson, John Haag, Helena Oskarsson, and Maria Hollander. We can give them a big hand. Because now we are rushing over, so we're having our last discussion, and I would like to ask Gunilla Saltin, who is CEO of Södra Cell, and Thomas Nord, who is Senior Lecturer at the Institution for Economic and Industrial Development at the University of Linköping. And we're actually going to have a couple of minutes where we're going to discuss leadership for innovation in the forest sector. We started 9 o'clock this morning. What did you learn so far, and what are your reflections, Gunilla?
Well, maybe we can have our first picture, because we have actually done some work in this report regarding leadership in the forest industry. And I think one things that we would like to point out is that there are two kinds of, or many kinds of innovation. And the interviews that we did with top CEOs of the 6 major forest industry companies show that they were very well placed in one part and more inexperienced in the other.
Exactly, we are, but also if we start with this one, since we've been talking about transformation, and we are looking at an industry which is mature, and we know all the processes to be very efficient. So we follow the red curve. We are working very much on the top line of it. And the type of leadership, since we've been looking at the leadership, is, what it says here, exploitative. But it's also, another word is transactional. So you set up goals and you work very efficient. You create routines so that it's easy for anyone to come into the company and to improve this small part. But if you need to go to a new business, that is to step from one curve to a new curve, to be more exploratory, to look for new adventures, for new businesses, then you need a transformational leadership. That is to be more open, to hire new people, to set up new groups of people so that you can create these new adventures. The difficulty then is, if you have a mature company that is working very properly, why should you work there? And how do you, as a leader, combine a transactional and a transformational, which is in academia, of course we have a word for that, that's ambidextrous. You have to combine, you have to move from one platform to another. Or, as Sten mentioned, you have people on different levels that are suitable for their roles.
Yeah, because you need to be managing both, don't you?
Exactly.
Gunilla?
And I think what was mentioned in all our interviews was that the leaders are very much aware of this dual purpose, but it's not so easy to handle both. And you also have to keep in mind, as you're all aware of, is that there are different parts of the forest industry, some that are doing really well and some that are struggling. And to handle these both parts, it's a different task depending on where you are in profitability.
But how can you develop a strategy to actually take care of both these purposes? Because you have the business, you're running the business as usual, and sometimes it's profitable, and why changing a winning concept? I mean, then you really know that for the future, you really need to develop other branches and to do other things, because something is happening out there with the digitalization, with the robots and all the kind of technological revolutions going on. So how can you build a structure to support this kind of development into new business models?
You want me to go on that?
Yeah, you're from academia.
Yeah, okay. To build a structure, you have to, exactly, to start with the strategy. Where are we aiming? It is about the beliefs, it is about behavior in a company. And if we want to transform into a new company, it has to start from the top, so that you then hire right people. But it is the combination of setting the goals and to hire the people, and the combination of changing the technology from a present technology and a combination of a new business model. Referring to what we heard in the morning here with the innovative environments, I think that's one area that is very, very important for our mature industry. Even if we have a lot of capital and it is possible to do changes, we need the people, and those are present in those environments.
Gunilla, some people say that forest industry is fat and happy.
Some parts probably are, but when we listen to all the leaders, they, I would say, are not. They are very much aware of the diversity problem that somebody brought up, but there are no easy solutions. And somebody also brought up that it said that we are very risk avert, but we handle very large financial risks every day, and to add even more risk to that is not really rewarded in the boardroom. So that also has to be handled, and to handle an added risk, it has to be managed within the company culture.
If we look at those innovation types that you got here, how to analyze them and what to do, because these are different kinds, and you need to meet them with different strategy. I don't know who would like to start commenting on this. Would it be you, Thomas?
Yeah, we were discussing how to present what Jon mentioned earlier, how to work into the ecosystems, and then we thought, well, we need a matrix. And coming from the economic side, I'm very fond of four-fielders. But so we did this in the past. I realized that we now wrote wrongly. It's radical disruptive, not disputive. It should be disruptive.
I think everyone understands that. But if we start down in the left corner,
yes,
we're talking about the same business models and the same technology, and that's actually what very many have been doing for a long time. It's incremental.
But we also have to keep doing that, because we need to make sure we make money tomorrow and 5 years from now from the existing business. Otherwise, there will be no radical disruptive business in 10 years. So we need to actually make sure that we continue doing what we do well today.
Yeah, that's also what
we cannot lose that part.
No. That's also what they're doing in the media business. They're squeezing the last income out of the paper products, of the paper newspapers, while transforming into the digital papers, the digital distribution.
But that also, it's the same, but it's not standing still. I mean, we need to develop. There are new opportunities with digitalization, for instance, and our competitors, they keep developing. So it's not like we can sit still there either. That also has to be spent resources and time and money on that.
Right. Yeah, and moving on to the radical ones, radical
innovations.
New technology. Then I guess that's what most companies has been pursuing in the industry. We follow the technology to change that. But what is happening now is more including new services, including new ways of creating value for the customer.
But keeping the customers and working on the same market.
Exactly, yeah. And then you come to creating new business models. Since when we talk about business models, it's creating value for the customers. First, you start with a strategy to be competitive, and then you create you realize your business model. That is creating value for the customer, which is a new way of thinking. And the upper right corner, this radical disruptive, where both business models is new and you have a new technology, then it really comes down to the organization. How do you work with your organization? Because that requires changes.
Because this can imply that you have totally new markets and that you have totally new customers.
Exactly.
And that's a bit scary, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the discussions that was this morning, they're all the good examples of that corner. And I think the trick for the forest industry, at least in Sweden, is to balance all four fields here. I'm from a technical background. I can handle more than four. But this is a big challenge, I think. Yep. And we have to realize that. And if it would have been easy, it would have been done. But because the examples that we've heard have been very good, and we also included some of them in our report.
Because what you can say that technology happens. I mean, there is developing, a new technology is developing. But then how you react to this technology, that's up to you in the company. And that you can actually have an influence on. So you are the one who can develop strategies for a radical disruptive. So how do you prepare for yourself to do that? Is it the strategy discussions within the board meetings? Is it having a special department of not forensics, people watching the future, futurologists, people watching the future? How do you prepare for it?
I think one of the suggestions that we have is that sort of keep it separate from the daily business, because that also needs lots of attention and focus to stay profitable. So we suggest maybe some internal incubators, working with other incubators, but doing it sort of separately. That's one of the suggestions that we have.
Exactly.
Because otherwise it creates, I mean, everything, you need energy for everything. And to get enough energy on something that's aimed for 5 to 10 years, it needs to be separate, we think.
Yeah, Thomas?
But still keep it on the agenda when you have meetings. And as we heard before, allow failures and learn. But then allow failures, but learn from failures, which is the most tricky part. And we always hear about success stories. It's very seldom that we hear about failures and learn from those.
But this is absolutely a leadership issue, right?
It is, and I think also need to ensure that the top management, that this is one of their tasks to do. I think it's very difficult to create this from bottom up.
Because this scheme that you made, you can see it as a description of different business models related to different kind of technologies, but you can also use it as a tool in the discussion within companies. What do we do if? What could happen if? For this kind of discussion. What else do you want to need? What else should a good leader, could a good leader do in order to make his or her company more adaptive to the changes in the surrounding world?
The $1 million question, I guess. I guess it's easy to say that is listen to people. To listen to, if we talk about values, creating value for the customers, then we need to talk to the customer at first to see what do they want, and then to try to vision what the values are, because the customers can probably not say that this is what we need today, yes, but not tomorrow.
Gunilla?
I think there's no easy answer. I think you have to have a good cultural fit. I think you can create this different way. I'm not sure that the most innovative people are the best leaders, but they do get results, and it could be whatever fits your company, and you have to have a plan for it, I think.
So a good leader will listen to the innovative people and execute.
Listening is always, from my perspective, good, but I'm not so sure that I would like to work for all these great entrepreneurs that have created big companies. I mean, that there might not be the best leaders, but they get results.
Was it the last slide you had? Yeah, because we're running out of time now. It's 12 o'clock. Is there something else you would like to add after this seminar? What do you want people sitting in the audience to bring with them home from today?
I think I just want to from what we found that when we did our interviews, I think this is a topic that's very much on the agenda in the forest industry. So I think if you have something you would like to discuss, I think there are lots of opportunities in the forest industry right now. Lots of awareness.
And Thomas, what are you sending with them?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing, that the industry is open, and what we heard about is that there are a lot of environments to connect to, and we have good examples from our interviews that can be exposed even more.
Yeah. So then, thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Gunilla. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say this report, this one is the first of 4 that is going to analyze innovation in the forest industry. So there will come more reports during the spring, and there will be another seminar on the 30th of May here. So please welcome back then, and I hope you enjoyed the day. And we say thank you, Gunilla Saltin, and thank you, Thomas Norden. We give them a big hand.